What's up, everybody? It's the Roundtable Sports Podcast. My name is Taylor McLean, talking to you today about the Atlanta Falcons victory over the Carolina Panthers. It's the first game that I watched for this week. I plan to watch all the games. Don't think I'm going to get to podcast about all of them by any stretch, but I thought I'd give you what I had on this game because I did watch it in full. And actually, it made my four box for a while. During the regular slate. So I did get to see some of this, as well as they had some coverage on Red Zone as well. So I got to see a good amount of this game, but it was one that I wanted to go back in and watch when I heard some of the things that I had heard and seen throughout the day about it. And I didn't get to watch the coaching film on this one. That doesn't come out for a little bit, but I knew I could kind of get a good feel for this one without it. So thought we'd jump into it and talk about the winning team and what I saw with the Atlanta Falcons. Now, to be clear, this was a highly contested game for much of the game. I mean, it was 10-10 going deep into the third quarter before the Falcons eventually scored two unanswered touchdowns to give themselves the lead. It was interesting to watch Atlanta come out and do what they did. It was really, really conservative from a play calling standpoint. I mean, we're talking about 18 attempts. He tried to throw more than that, but there was penalties and he was sacked a couple of times. So to only have 18 attempts get out there is a little misleading. They tried to throw a little more than that, but they were definitely intent on running the ball. And in a way, that to me kind of felt like they were trying to limit what they had to rely on Desmond Ridder to do. Because to be honest, it didn't feel like he had a good feel for the game and for processing on a high level. Like him getting out there and really working a high level passing game, it didn't feel like that was something they were interested in doing during this game, them being the Atlanta Falcons. They really didn't put a whole lot on Desmond's plate for him to go out there and try to accomplish from a throw standpoint. Now, it's not to say he was devoid of making good throws. He made a couple to, keep the drive going, but there was a lot of horizontal throws outside of like the big Kyle Pitts play and a couple of plays to Mac Hollins. I mean, there wasn't a lot of air yards underneath his throws. Like he wasn't throwing it down the field a whole lot, trying to make a lot of things happen. And they didn't really put him in a position to do that a lot. It was more relying on the run game, screens to Bijan, check downs out of the backfield. There was a lot of that going on, and rightfully so. Bijan Robinson was explosive. Tyler Allgeier was explosive, and probably make up one of the most explosive backfields that we have at this point. Allgeier doesn't really get the type of credit he should get for the campaign he had last year. 1,000 yards is 1,000 yards, but it was a well-earned 1,000 yards because they didn't have a lot going in the passing game to alleviate a lot of the stress that you come under, kind of like in a between the tackles running game, kind of like with David Montgomery in the Thursday game, where he's running between the tackles and it's not really going a lot of places, but it's also to set up everything else and to take the pressure off of Jared Goff. There was a lot of that to the Atlanta game plan, where it felt like Atlanta was really trying to hide Desmond Ridder and keep him from having to do a whole lot when it came to the passing game and when it came to throwing downfield. This is strictly a feel thing. I don't have the where he ranked and where they ranked in expected plays above average when it comes to them throwing the ball, but it was a hide the Ridder situation, and they didn't have to necessarily put their foot on the gas during this game because they weren't really down. They were down 10-7, or they were down possessions at times, but they never got down 10 to 14 points. They were down 3 at one point, but still it was never really pressed upon them to have to throw the ball downfield. They did a lot of leaning on some explosive running from the running backs and then getting the ball into Bijan's hands into space, whether that was running him in a traditional style or getting the ball in his hands out on the edges, which he went 6 of 6 for 27 yards. And of course, that nice touchdown where he jukes the guy and then runs through a tackle. There was plenty of that to the game plan and to get the ball in his hands. But when you have Drake London go for one target and you have Kyle Pitts go for 3 targets, that's a problem. That's a weird thing to do when I know those guys are explosive and I know that Drake London is capable of being a target monster. So that definitely doesn't speak well to what they expect from Desmond Ridder from a processing standpoint and from a getting the ball out in a successful way down the field. Now, this is what Arthur Smith does too. Arthur Smith loves to run the ball, right? That's not unexpected. And that was kind of the word we got, was that we were going to see some Allgeier and we were going to see a whole lot of Bijan as well. And that, the Kyle Pitts, Drake London thing, as good as it might look on paper, may not be what it looks like on paper and may not be as explosive as it could be if they had a quarterback that was capable of doing a little bit more when it comes to, making reads and being able to escape from the pocket. Because that was my other big criticism of Desmond Ridder, is the pocket awareness didn't seem like it had gone a lot of places from last year either. He has a little bit of escapability. He's faster than your Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield types, one of which knows he can't run and one of which thinks he can run, but really has a tough time, even though he did get a key 4th down in his game. So I can't talk too much trash on that account, but still Desmond has a little bit more speed than that. But as far as knowing when to use it and knowing how to escape from that pocket, it wasn't good on this day. And the Panthers weren't incredibly stout on defense today either in that respect, even though they had plenty of coverage and they, were putting plenty of pressure on Desmond Ridder. There's a reason that he couldn't get a lot of those passes off, but I think a lot of that was on him versus his offensive line. Don't get me wrong. They got beat. They got beat by Brian Burns too, who it was good for Carolina to have him out there after some contract stuff with him and not, I think he was holding in, I believe, during that time. So to have him out there was a big boost for them as well. But still, it was a situation that it felt like somebody that was playing a little better could have taken advantage of. So just week 1 for Desmond Ridder, but it wasn't a good sign overall from what I had seen. He was pretty green last year, and it didn't seem like there was a whole ton of progression from that. He still felt really green out there. And while I think the Panthers defense versus their offense is going to be their strength this year, and I think they put more of their players in a position to succeed, like Derek Brown seems to be playing in a better position than he was in previous iterations, and they seem to be moving Brian Burns around. And I think overall they're going to get better coaching than what they were going to get last year, but it's still and it's going to, keep the defense in a better position, but I'm still way concerned for what they have going on there and what that's going to look like in the end. And when I say in the end, I mean like when they're pressed into more 3rd down situations where it's 3rd and 9 and he has to, make a read beyond the first read. Is he going to be able to do that? Because to be an NFL quarterback, you have to be complete in that way. And the way that they handled the play calling today definitely felt like they didn't believe in Ridder to do a lot of those things still. So just game 1. We'll see what Ridder does when he's put into more passing situations, more pure passing situations. But the good thing is he's got a coach that is committed to the running game, that he has a line that is going to be able to create holes, because let's not just talk about Desmond Ridder when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. The line, I thought the line played well. It wasn't all the way, a great game. They had, like I said, they had problems with Brian Burns and the pass blocking. From a running game standpoint, there were holes that were opened, and I think on a regular basis they are going to be able to run the ball in a way that they're not going to have to expose Desmond to as many high pressure situations that he may or may not be able to handle at this point in his career. So he's got that coach behind him. He's got the line behind him. And then Bijan and Tyler Allgeier is a devastating combo as a running game. So that as long as they've got that kind of intact, then they're not going to have to do as much with the passing game. And that could lead to some bad things for Drake London. That leads to some bad things for Kyle Pitts. And, you weren't counting on Mac Hollins in the first place, but, it's just not going to be something consistent. And when you're talking about like starting and sitting guys in regular fantasy football, that could be a problem. So we'll see what they do with the passing game part of it. And it'll be interesting too, what they do with the running game part of it too. Cause obviously Bijan Robinson owners would have liked to have seen Bijan get those 2 touchdowns that Tyler Allgeier got. Right. And Tyler Allgeier might not have had the same day. I mean, without those touchdowns. Right. But he did get 15 carries there. They were a little bit more of the in between the tackle grinder type carries, but he did a good job with them. And then when you're the in between the tackles grinder guy, that also usually means that some of the goal line touches as well. And Tyler did a lot with them. He had a nice bounce off of a defender to get to the edge. Then he had the classic run up the middle touchdown as well, both of which are right up his alley and things that he excels at. And he's not just a between the tackles guy. He can get on the outside and do stuff as well. He does a good job of making guys miss and running through contact. So he's a perfect complement to Bijan in that way as well, because Bijan does all those things and then some. And having Allgeier allows you to not have to wear him out and to have him fresh and to be able to use him in a way that makes your offense more explosive, because you can have the Allgeier run the play action and then have Bijan and get him more on the outside where he's dealing more with the cornerbacks and the safeties of the world trying to tackle him, which is not a good thing, because Bijan runs through that contact so well, but then he also is really elusive. He moves better than a man of his size should be able to move. And that's a key in the NFL, is when you're able to run through that little arm tackle, but then also make the guys miss, that really strikes in the heart of defenders when they're coming to tackle you, because they don't know how you're going to try to avoid that tackle. And then Bijan takes advantage and gives these chunk plays to an offense that is desperate for those chunk plays, because they have a harder time creating them through the air. Because creating chunk plays through the air, those deep passes, the plays between 15 to 25 yards are really hard to come up with. And it takes a certain amount of courage from a play caller and from a quarterback to be able to make those plays. And I have a big problem with quarterbacks that don't consistently try or consistently throw good balls, catchable balls in that area, because that's where a lot of the money is made, both for the offense in a chunk play situation, where a chunk play, when that happens in a drive, you're like 80% more likely to score in that drive than you would be just trying to move it 4 yards at a time, because you can move it 4 yards every play and get to a touchdown. But a lot of defenses are betting on you not being able to do that, to have to eventually get to 3rd and 8. And then you tee up and you rush the heck out of Desmond Ridder, and then the offense isn't able to do much with it. The Falcons got lucky today that they weren't having to put Desmond in as many of those situations because of their commitment to the run game, because they were getting stuff out of that, because of Bijan, because of Tyler Allgeier, and because of the offensive line having a good game. So that'll be a big key to watch with Atlanta going forward, is the health of their line and the health of that combination of running backs, because I think that's where a lot of the explosiveness is going to come. And then, they're going to have these huge catch radiuses out there with Drake London and Kyle Pitts when they need it. Unfortunately, I drafted Drake London more than I should have where he was going, it seems. Just one game, so this could be totally different. Like I said, Atlanta wasn't pushed in this game, but they did show you who they are when they get to do what they want to do. This is Atlanta when they get to do what they want to do. Now, they're going to get pushed outside of that for sure. And that could lead to some sparser games for Allgeier because, without those touchdowns, we're just talking about, 100 yards, right? But still, he got 100 yards worth of touches. He did enough to earn more. He's going to be a part of that game plan so they don't wear out Bijan Robinson because they are invested in both these guys for many years. It's just 2 more years after this one for Allgeier because he wasn't a first round pick but for Bijan, they're essentially already invested 4 more years after this one at least. So they want to keep him, safe and healthy for the long run, but they also know they're going to need him. And so they're being smart about it and they're getting him in space where he's not taking as many of those heavy touches. So I think that both of them are going to be a thing. It's just how much are they going to actually pass this year? Like I thought for a lot of it that it was Marcus Mariota that really held them back from throwing the ball more. But it seems like Desmond Ridder isn't at a big enough upgrade in that department to get them out of their shell more. And that's a disappointing thing for me and should be a disappointing thing probably for Atlanta overall. But then again, I would also be just as encouraged by Arthur Smith and his ability to run offense in a way that's, smart, given whatever situation he's given. Now, maybe it's not great that he chose Desmond Ridder, and he could have had a shot at some of the other quarterbacks, but they didn't fall to him and he didn't reach on someone else. And he's going to see what he's got in Ridder. And you know what? If Ridder is this guy, then they're going to be in a position to probably draft somebody next year. They may be too competent, though, as they showed today, to, be as bad as like somebody's going to be for that number 1 pick. They may have to trade into it. And that may be something they do. One game, I'm not ready to throw in the towel completely, but I just didn't see the things I wanted from Desmond to be as excited as I wanted to be when I saw the final score to this game. And when I didn't get to see as much as I wanted to just right off the bat.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
No, Siri, I can't try again because I wasn't talking to you. The other reason I watched this game was for the Bryce Young part of it. The Carolina Panthers traded a lot to get Bryce Young. They're putting a lot on his plate just to start with what they've got weapon-wise and where they are in their rebuild. So I wanted to see how he responded and what I thought about the way he played. And, in a 10-point performance, you're usually not excited about the quarterback. He only threw for 145 yards, or what was it, 148? God, I can't read from too far away. That's pathetic. Anyway, sorry, I'm also distracted. I found paper clips in my shirt and I can't stop messing with it. Anyway, so we wanted to talk about Bryce Young. And I wanted to see how this offense and how this team was going to look under a new regime. Because as I mentioned in the Atlanta portion of this, I was not impressed by the coaching last year. Matt Rule proved to not run a tight ship and not run an NFL ship. So really seeing everything we saw from Carolina last year was like not really something that you'd want to evaluate exactly because you're evaluating it under weird circumstances. So clean slate for everybody. Let's see what they've got. Let's see what it looks like under what I think is an actual NFL head coach, under someone that I've actually seen coordinate a quality NFL offense more than once. Like, okay, Frank Reich didn't come through on all of those burnt out quarterbacks, but they were burnt out quarterbacks. I thought he got a lot out of those guys during that time and during stretches of those guys' tenures, but there's only so much you can get out of them at a certain point. Like at a certain point they're washed or they're no longer going to get you where you need to go. So, okay. But still there is some skepticism for Frank Reich. Is he going to get, is he the guy? Is he a head coach? Was it Doug Peterson? Doug Peterson looking good last year, and the Jacksonville Jaguars also, I feel like, kind of tainted some of the opinion. So, like I said, this is why I wanted to watch the Panthers. I love watching new quarterbacks to see what they look like in an NFL setting. And to an extent, this was kind of looking at Desmond with new eyes too. So this is what got me into this game today, as the first game, right? So Bryce went out there and yeah, it was not pretty, not graded well by PFF. The stats don't look good. And obviously the 10 points, big disappointment. But I think you have to look at Carolina overall. And it's weird to say that I would be much more encouraged as a Carolina Panther fan about my thing going forward than I would be the Atlanta Falcons. I love Bijan. I love a lot of the tools, and I love Arthur Smith. So I'm encouraged there too. But I was encouraged by Bryce Young in some of the things that I saw for what he's gonna be going forward. So you got to think about, what is Bryce going to be going forward? He's going to be a pocket guy that's going to make good decisions, that's going to be able to move the ball down the field, work that area of the field I was talking about, that 15 to 25 range, that's going to make smart decisions, that's going to be able to create time with his legs and then try to create banger plays, trying to create boom plays down the field with that extra time. That's who Bryce is going to be, right? He's not going to be a running back type quarterback where he's going to be able to, uplift the Panthers with his legs. It's going to have to be a really in-sync passing game that gets him by. And I don't think that the Carolina Panthers currently possess the weapons to get a rookie quarterback to look like a above average quarterback on a day-to-day, a week-to-week basis. Obviously day-to-day, that's not a thing in the NFL, but week-to-week, right? If he had, if he's walking into like the Tampa Bay situation where it's Chris Godwin and it's Mike Evans and maybe an upgraded offensive line, right? Maybe that would be one thing, right? If he was walking into a ready-made situation, like if he was the 30th pick walking into a really good team, that'd be one thing, right? But we're talking about Carolina Panthers had to trade picks to get him and then also trade DJ Moore, and DJ Chark is not playing today in this game. And the guy they brought in was Adam Thielen, who didn't look to be creating a whole lot of separation on a bum ankle. Nevertheless, last year without the bum ankle, he wasn't getting any separation then either. So we're talking about a extremely low end weapon situation on the wide receiver end for the Carolina Panthers. So when you take that into account for Bryce Young, I thought he was just fine because I saw a lot of the things I wanted to see from Bryce Young as a rookie quarterback. You want to see the skeleton of what could be there if things were going right and going better. And I think I saw that from Bryce Young in a week one context. So let me explain. Number one, like I said, weapons were not getting a whole lot of separation. So yeah, there was some sacks taken. There was a lot of running around and there was a lot of tight throws that did not get connected with. Now, that's not to say that Bryce was making all good throws. There were a lot of throws that were off the mark. He was off the mark from a timing aspect or from where he was putting it from a timing aspect. But so from like an arm strength standpoint, the throws were there either from the pocket, on the run, and under duress. I felt like he could make the throws that a quarterback is going to need to make in the NFL from an arm strength standpoint. So that's the first thing you want to see from a new quarterback is the arm strength there. And I think from the Desmond Ridder side that I think he has enough arm strength too. Now, I don't think that either one of them are on the high end of that arm strength. I think they are very average in that respect. So that is something that they're going to have to work around, is that Bryce isn't going to be able to be on one leg and hurl the ball 50 yards down the field in a Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes type of way. And I also don't think that he's going to be a part of the tier below that, like the Trevor Lawrence, it's got that zing, it's got that pop on the ball. But it has enough pop. It's not an Andy Dalton situation where I feel like he's got a pop gun, Like, I know when I watch Josh Dobbs later on, he's got a pop gun, and defenses don't have to respect him down the field. So they cramp up and they get closer and closer to the line. And that leads to, your short passes not being as open. That leads to less run after the catch. That leads to not as many holes in the running game, etc. Right. But for the Panthers, I feel like it's not a Bryce Young thing right now. Well, okay, it's a rookie Bryce Young thing, but I don't think long term that's a Bryce Young thing going forward. I believe he has the ability to throw on time, accurate passes to the deeper parts of the field and the short parts of the field. So, box checked number one, he is not a zero in his arm strength situation. Now, what I was talking about, yeah, he had some off time stuff. He had some accuracy stuff. That is year one stuff that can be corrected, which is part of why I'm so disappointed in Desmond Ridder, is that it seems like a lot of that is still on the table and still something that's being dealt with. Whereas you hope that he's a little further along after getting the short starter period at the end of the year. And then you're hoping that he's made some progression now. That's where a lot of my disappointment comes with Desmond Ridder. Whereas I'm not as disappointed in Bryce Young, because this is what I expect. I expect the tight throws to be a little off sometimes, but then when you see things go right, you see him make the throw and make the completion. There's a lot of Hayden Hurst completions in there that I liked seeing in this game, and I think that Hayden Hurst is one of the few places where they have a plus at their weapons. And Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders, I think they're a plus, but they're just barely a plus. Honestly, it's just barely. It's not great. They're not greatness. Like Bijan and Tyler Allgeier, that has a greatness aspect to it. Maybe not greatness, but goodness, very goodness. That could be a part of that. I don't know that Miles and Chuba have that same upside, but they have something. That's where I land on them. The wide receivers, as they put them out there, like Mingo's not ready. Mingo's not ready to be that guy. Terrence Marshall is just a guy. And then Adam Thielen is less than that. Especially with the bum ankle, he needed to come out completely healthy. And even then, like, there was a big reason that the Vikings drafted Jordan Addison and gave Thielen the boot, because they wanted to throw the ball a whole bunch of times and they needed someone to get separation outside of Justin Jefferson. Like, they needed that guy to take advantage of single coverage. And basically the Panthers could single cover, or you could single cover everybody and really, and then have like safeties over the top when you have the type of weapons that the Panthers have and are trotting out there right now. So they're not threatening anybody. And so that leads to all the short area stuff that they need to, be good and to take advantage of the other team and of that area. They can't do that because that area is swamped, because they don't have to respect them as hard down the field. Now, I will say there was a lot of that was, because they were kind of protecting Bryce a little as much as they could, and they didn't have to push themselves as much as they would have had to had they got down either. So we didn't get to see as much of the third, pure passing stuff for either team that I would have liked to have seen to evaluate these quarterbacks further. But the Panthers put 10 times more on Bryce's plate than the Atlanta Falcons did for Ridder. Like, there was a lot more that I felt like the Panthers asked Bryce to do, and he wasn't as successful with it. Asked him to throw the ball 38 times. That's a big difference. That's different than what the Falcons were thinking completely. And that's a good thing for Bryce's development going forward. Failing in this environment, but having moments and flashes is okay. It's when, like, you're Zach Wilson, where none of it's making sense, and the only thing that makes sense is the backyard football aspect of it. Like, yeah, okay, that was a big part of what made sense for Bryce today. Like I said, him running around and escaping was a big part of what made. I guess I didn't say. I guess I talked about the arm strength first. So let's talk about that. There was a big difference in the way that Bryce was escaping and running around and the way Ridder was escaping and running around. I'm so glad they played each other so I can compare them both. Just right there. I love it. Okay, so Bryce is actually getting away. He's actually spinning out of it and finding the open field. Ritter doesn't feel like he knows where the open field is. He can't find the opening to get out. Bryce can find the opening. He's got that awareness. He feels in the pocket. Ritter doesn't have that feel at all. And that's what I was hoping we would get more of. And the Falcons know that he doesn't have it. The Panthers don't know yet. They don't know yet. We don't know. We won't know till if Bryce really has the feel till next year when everything's looking a little better and they have the weapons and they kind of put things a little bit more in line. But still, at least we saw flashes of it where he spins out, he gets the more time. That's what we want to see with Bryce. That's where a lot of his explosion and his that's where a lot of his quarterback equation, like there's an equation where you've got like how much can they, push the ball down the field, how much arm strength do they have, how much, escapability, how much can they run like Cam Newton or Anthony Richardson, like how much can they do all those things. And there's this equation and it all adds up to, can I be a successful quarterback in the NFL right here? And I feel like with Bryce, part of what's going to make his equation work out is the escapability, creating more time, and then making smart decisions down the field and with the football. And right now, because it's overwhelming, both the speed of the game and how much is on his plate, then those plays are going to be fewer and fewer and far between. Look at Trevor Lawrence. Once everything kind of settled down for him, then he's able to create more time. Then he's actually hitting guys down the field. Oh, wait, we got him Calvin Ridley, who looks good now. So, and now he looks even better, even though that game's going to be crazy to watch. I don't want to use that Trevor thing because they had a weird Jekyll and Hyde game, it kind of seems. So I'm excited to watch that one, but let's not. But the point is, when it does slow down for Bryce and he's used to the speed and he knows where everything's going and stuff, I think that he can be more than just a guy that can just get that first or second read. Like I think he can process on that level that I'm skeptical if Ritter can. So that'll be the big thing is, how does Bryce progress? Like as he's seeing more and more of it, does it start to slow down? Do we start to see more and more explosive plays? It's going to be harder for him to come by than for some of them. Like at least Anthony has Michael Pittman. Like Michael Pittman may not be a number one, but he's a pseudo number one at worst, right? At least he can kind of play the role. They don't have anybody. Thielen is not capable of doing this. Even without the ankle, he's not capable of doing this. It's not good. And the fact that he has guaranteed money in his contract beyond this, not great either, because that means as somebody you can't sign next year. But that's only going to make me more impressed. That's only going to make what Bryce does more impressive. It's only going to make it's not. I mean, you can say I'm blaming the cart instead of the horse or something along those lines and say when I'm blaming these weapons, but they're bad. They're really bad. To make Hayden Hurst to make him look like the most explosive weapon, he should be an auxiliary weapon, not your main guy. The fact that I'm thinking about DJ Chark, I'm yearning for DJ Chark, is really gross. And it speaks to who was constructing the rosters before and to the trade they had to make to get here. But I think it's going to be worth it because I saw some things from Bryce that, like I said, they're just not ready in a lot of ways. Now, the other really encouraging thing for them is that there was some line play that I liked from the offensive line. Now, it wasn't perfect by any means. There weren't just running lanes for days. But at the same time, they got stronger as everything went on. And the Atlanta Falcons, the strength of their defense, besides AJ Terrell, is their defensive tackles. So to be able to create running lanes against them is somewhat impressive. And Ike Ekwonu, they still have problems in the pass blocking department. Don't get me wrong, but they have a pretty decent line. Like Ike Ekwonu got better, it looked like, and then they have Taylor Moton. I never know how to say his name. It's Mouton or Moton. I think it's Moton. Anyway, Taylor Moton looked to be good as well. So the fact that they were able And then you throw that together with another quality lineman in Bozeman, and that could be a good situation for them. There could be holes and a running game for them to work off of here. Now, like I said, I didn't think Chuba and Miles looked incredible, but they are serviceable at the very least. And I was impressed with Chuba, especially. I thought he looked good out there. Miles was good, if not okay. I mean, maybe it was a little lackluster, but I don't think he got the same holes that Chuba got too. I thought, but Chuba took advantage of them. He's going to be out there too for sure. So it's not going to be just Miles out there either, as long as Chuba is looking good. So that's disappointing for fantasy owners. But at the same time, they're going to run the ball. They're going to try to take pressure off of Bryce so that they can try and, put him in more plus situations so that he can, have good things happen to try and kickstart his development more. But there's going to need to be bad things. And the good thing is the Panthers are going to let that happen. They put stuff on his plate. They tried to make him make throws. They didn't just, run. They didn't do what Atlanta did. They didn't let him. Atlanta just threw the ball 18 times. I'm so disappointed by that. Like, that's not great. That's a team knowing that your guy doesn't quite have what he needs to have to do that. To do what, I mean, at least the Carolina Panthers thought that Bryce might be able to do this. And you know what? Because they're doing it now, maybe he will be able to then. The final thing on Bryce, because I know I'm talking a lot of Bryce here, but that's why we watched. And as I am pissed off about the rest of it, and I've kind of just let you know how I feel about the rest of their team, the size, he is small, but he doesn't feel too small. He doesn't look tiny out there. He looks small, but it's not too small. So that was another big thing I was looking for out there that I guess I wasn't, that leaves me a little bit more higher on Bryce than I would have normally been is, he looks small, but he looks like he's moving around. It's not Kyler fast by any stretch, but it's fast enough too. The escapability is there, the feel in the pocket, and then the feel for the throws. Like, he's gonna make banger over the shoulder, just hits the guy right there, throws, but there was not a lot of separation. There weren't a lot of easy throws for him to make out there. And that's what a rookie needs to get the confidence up. And then he makes the big throw over the top. And that's when you see things start getting going for a rookie. That's something that goes away with time too, is they don't need that momentum push to get themselves going. They don't need to get on fire before they're, shooting as many threes as they need to be shooting out there. And, all things that are going to come with time for Bryce. So Panthers fans, it's not the start you were looking for on offense, but I saw the skeleton. So be excited about that. Anyway, I've talked for way too long about this game. Super appreciate everybody's time. I hope it was informative and I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's just the audio format, possibly on Google. I don't know if I'm going to do the video on YouTube, excuse me. Also, may have a sponsor coming up here. We got at the meeting. So I'm excited about that. So look forward to that and have a great rest of your day.